of Baku and home, of course, to the Azerbaijan Grand Prix with high speeds, tight corners and few runoff zones. Many are expecting a safety car here today, so our drivers will have to stay very much on their toes and hopefully out of the barriers. It's 3.7 miles around a lap of Baku City Circuit then, with 7 rights and 13 lefts, giving us a total of 20 corners. Watch out for a safety car today. Incidents are already common on this circuit, and the wet conditions will only make things worse, particularly through the incredibly narrow Turn 8. Before we begin, let's take a quick look at the grid lineup for today's race. What a qualifying yesterday for George Russell. He'll start today's race from pole position, edging out Max Verstappen, who will start from P2. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Sainz, Leclerc, Surfer Girl, Fernando Alonso, Norris, Tsunoda, Hamilton, Gasly, Albon, Magnussen, Oscar Piastri, Ricciardo, Joe, Ocon, Stroll, Hülkenberg, Sargent, and Valtteri Bottas begins the race from the back of the grid. And now it's time to head down to the track. Anthony Davidson is with us in the commentary box for this one, and all the planning has gone out of the window because of the weather.
Yeah, it's these kind of conditions where you can go in with one of two mindsets. You either see it as an opportunity, or you're worried that all of your hard work's about to be undone. We've been stuck in these conditions now for a few hours, more or less this kind of intensity, so we don't seem to have too much standing water, so we're not likely to be starting behind a safety car. And like you say, Crofty, the charge down into turn 1 will be quite interesting. I think we're in for a cracking Grand Prix.
Right then, the formation lap has started, and I must say the weather conditions aren't the best today for visibility and grip. As each driver performs this lap, they'll be wanting to settle in and concentrate, as this race in these conditions will require a lot of focus. So as all the cars take their positions on the grid, the teams will be hoping their strategies pay off for them in today's race. But the question I'm asking is which teams have got it right and which teams have got it horribly wrong.
Okay, we're monitoring some wear on the internal combustion engine. Be aware that we're going to start to see a loss of power. That's a decent start. Good job. like we're running on a dry track soon. Back to dry shortly. Okay, looks like some of those puddles are clearing. We're still definitely on the right tyre for the time being, but we're probably not a million miles away from slick conditions. Gap to your teammate ahead is 4.4 seconds. Okay, so the gap to the car ahead, 3.7 seconds. There's a new strategy available on the MFD. Understood, copy that. Okay, the stewards have now enabled DRS. DRS is now online. DRS has been enabled. DRS is now enabled. Okay, the stewards have now enabled DRS. DRS is now online. You only have to stop once now, one stop left. The pit window is open, pit window currently open. And gap to the car in front is 3.6 seconds. Max is coming in for his stop. Okay, we can't take you right now. Pit next lap. The pit box is currently full. Stay out on track. Stay out. Alright, consensus in the garage is that it's probably about time for the slick tyre now. It's going to be slippery, but it'll probably be quicker. Red Bull drivers stopping now. Okay, mate, that's it. Go, go, go. Perfect job from you and the crew there, mate. We're delighted with that. Up to speed now, let's get some heat into those tyres. catching the car ahead. Well done, but be aware these tyres need to get us to the end of this race. Okay, gap ahead is 3.5 seconds. Okay, we're looking at some gearbox wear, so try to keep the number of shifts to a minimum, please. Our gap to the car in front is 5.5 seconds. Information on Magnussen for you. They've got an issue with their car, they're going to be slow. Okay, gap to the car ahead is 5.4 seconds. That's just 5 laps of fuel remaining. Keep on him, he might make a mistake. Okay, here's the gap that we're trailing the car ahead by. 7.3 seconds. Right, we've got enough fuel for 3 more laps. Okay, keep an eye on that gap ahead, please. 8.4 seconds. Okay, mate, we might need to look at a new race strategy after that. I've got some options for you, so go and check your MFD. Wow, that was a heck of an impact. Let me know you're okay. Okay, so the gap to the car ahead, 8.8 seconds. We've only got 2 laps of fuel left. Okay, you've just started the final lap of the race, final lap. right, race over. Take care of the car on the way in.
They're heading to the top step of the podium in Baku. They've negotiated the old city walls. They're the winner. Tell me, Ant, how do you think they were able to deliver such an incredible result today?
Well, time management probably played quite a large role in the outcome of this one. As ever, it's not just about speed, it's all about maintaining that speed consistently over a stint, over a race distance. So being able to keep up the lap times while still being smooth on the controls and gentle on the tyres, that's really where the race was won today.
Here come today's winners. The team at Red Bull have done a phenomenal job recently. It's clear to see that they've put in the work, and they should be proud of the victory they've secured here. Max Verstappen now leads the Drivers' Championship. So then, it's time to see how this result affects the Drivers' Championship. Let's focus on Driver of the Day, Anthony Davidson. Who do you pick?
Max Verstappen seemed to just effortlessly weave through the other drivers today without a care in the world. He was definitely my driver of choice.
It's time to check out the Constructors' standings. Ferrari take the lead at the top of the table. Meanwhile, a strong weekend from Red Bull this time out, and they improved their position in the championship. And with that, we wrap up another weekend of motorsport. But with more races lined up, be sure to join us when we come back with more Formula One.
Here's where you can buy perks to become a better driver both on and off the track. Any fee you negotiate over your base salary in the contract negotiation is cash you can spend on these perks.